Hello, dear friends. It's such a joy to have you here with me again. Thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to spend in this little pocket of peace and reflection. Recently, my granddaughter Ava and her dear friend visited me here, filling my little coastal home with laughter and youthful energy. Over a leisurely breakfast and a stroll along the sunlit shore, we traded stories and unexpectedly about life itself. As we sat on a quiet bench with the waves rolling in, Ava turned to me and asked, "What's your best advice for living a good life?" That question stopped me in my tracks. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I had too much. Life, after all, has taught me plenty through joy, heartbreak, mistakes, and a few triumphs of the soul. So, today, I want to pass along some of those lessons, not as rules, but as reflections from one woman's journey. If you're young and wondering where to go next, or older and just taking a breath, I hope these thoughts feel like a warm hand in yours. There's something truly magical about curiosity. I told Ava, if there's one thing that will keep you young, not just on the outside, but in your soul, it's learning. Every single day offers us something new, something hidden in the corners of ordinary moments. It might not be a grand, life-altering discovery. Sometimes, it's as small as figuring out a better way to fold a scarf or learning a shortcut on your phone you didn't know existed. But these little things, they keep our minds sharp and our hearts engaged. When I was younger, I used to think education stopped after school. But now, I know that life is the real classroom, and every day is a chance to sit in the front row. If you're paying attention, ask questions. Be curious about the people around you. When someone seems quiet, don't assume they're okay. Ask how they're really doing. Sometimes, the most powerful lessons we learn come from listening deeply to others. And it's not just about facts or skills. Sometimes, it's emotional learning, like understanding your limits or discovering new patience you didn't know you had. Life will humble you, surprise you, challenge you. Let it teach you. I remember picking up a new book once at a time when I felt a bit stuck in life. That book, just 200 pages, shifted something in me. It made me question how I looked at forgiveness, and in doing so, it softened a part of my heart I didn't know had hardened. That's the kind of power that learning can have. It changes us from the inside out. There's also something deeply respectful about choosing to learn. It says, "I don't know everything. I have room to grow." That kind of humility is rare, but it's beautiful. And it makes life feel like an adventure, even on the quietest days. So I told Ava, never let a day go by without asking at least one new question. Learn something about yourself, someone else, or the world you live in. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Just be open. Because the people who stay curious, no matter their age, are the ones who never really grow old. And when you stop learning, that's when you start fading, not physically, but emotionally. You grow rigid. You stop asking. You stop reaching, and eventually, the world starts to feel smaller. So let your curiosity be your compass. Read, listen, explore. Try something you've never done before, even if it's awkward. Especially if it's awkward. Laugh at yourself, learn with joy, and keep going every day until the very last breath. Dreams are beautiful. They live in that tender part of us where imagination and hope intertwine. I remember Ava looking out over the water, her eyes full of wonder, and I saw myself in her. Back when I was a girl in a small town in Ohio, dreaming of stages and spotlights that felt galaxies away. But here's the truth I shared with her. Dreams don't move unless you do. They can light a fire in your heart, but it's up to you to tend that flame. When I was young, I dreamed of performing, of acting in New York City, maybe even being on television. But life had other plans for a long while. I got married, raised children, worked jobs that weren't glamorous but necessary. I tucked that dream away, not because I gave up, but because sometimes dreams need time to ripen. It took me 50 years to step onto a stage in New York. 50 years, and when I finally did, it wasn't because someone handed me the chance. It was because I never fully let go of the dream. It was always there, humming quietly in the background, reminding me who I was at my core. I told Ava, the world might not always be ready for your dream, but that doesn't mean you stop preparing for it. Read the books, take the class, make the small choices that add up to the big moment, because that moment will come, not on your timeline, but on life's. Too often, people let time or doubt steal their passion. They say, "I'm too old now," or "That ship has sailed." But I've learned there's no expiration date on passion. Your dream is still valid, even if it's dusty. Pick it back up, look at it again. Ask yourself, what's one small step I can take today? A dream isn't a fantasy, it's a seed. And like any seed, it needs water, sunlight, and care. But more than anything, it needs you to believe that it can grow. And if you're worried you'll look silly chasing something no one else understands, chase it anyway. This world doesn't need more people playing it safe. It needs more people alive with purpose. So I told Ava, dream big, but more importantly, act. Even if the first step is shaky, even if it feels like no one's watching, because the act of moving toward your dream changes you. It strengthens your character, deepens your resilience, and gives you stories to tell that matter. Hold on to your dreams, but don't just hold, build. One of the most powerful tools you'll ever have in life doesn't come from books, teachers, or even experience. It comes from within. I told Ava, if you learn to trust your instinct, your gut, you'll make better choices, even when life gets confusing. We all have that quiet inner voice, don't we? The one that whispers before the world starts shouting. It's subtle, and sometimes it doesn't make sense right away, but it's real, and when you ignore it, you usually find out later. It was right all along. There were so many times in my life when my instincts spoke up, whether it was meeting a new person, making a big decision, or stepping into the unknown. Sometimes I listened, and sometimes I didn't. And when I didn't, well, let's just say, I learned the hard way. Instinct is not fear. It's not anxiety or overthinking. It's a deep, calm knowing, a tug in your chest, a twist in your stomach, a quiet yes or no before your mind starts rationalizing. The hard part is giving yourself permission to trust it. We live in a world that's loud. Everyone has an opinion. Social media, friends, even strangers will tell you what they think you should do. But your gut doesn't need a spotlight. It just needs space to be heard. I remember a time when I was offered a job opportunity that looked perfect on paper. The pay was good, the title impressive, but something in me hesitated. I couldn't explain why. Everything seemed right, except my gut. I turned it down, and months later, I found out that company went under. That experience reminded me our inner compass is wiser than we realize. I told Ava, the earlier you learn to listen to that voice, the fewer regrets you'll carry. Because the truth is, your instinct is the sum of everything you've learned, everything you've survived, and everything you intuitively sense about the world. It's your soul speaking. Of course, sometimes instinct comes with tension. You might want to do something your heart craves, but your gut says wait. or walk away, or ask more questions. Trust that tension. Sit with it. Let it guide you, not push you, but lead you gently. And if you make a mistake, that's okay. Learning to trust yourself is a process. Each time you do it, even if the outcome isn't perfect, you're strengthening your ability to live in alignment with your values. So, to anyone young and figuring things out, listen. Not just with your ears, but with your spirit. The world may be full of voices, but your instinct is the one that knows the way home. One of the simplest pieces of advice I gave Ava that day was also one of the most important. Treat others the way you want to be treated. It sounds like a line from a children's book, but let me tell you, it's one of life's most profound truths. In all my years, I've learned that the energy we put into the world always finds its way back to us. If you show kindness, you'll eventually find it reflected in the people around you. If you give encouragement, you'll find strength flowing both ways. And if you spread love, you'll be surprised how much love returns to you, even from unexpected places. That doesn't mean people won't hurt you. Sometimes they will. Sometimes you'll treat someone with gentleness and grace, and they'll give you silence or cruelty in return. But that's not a reason to change your heart. You don't treat people well because they deserve it. You treat them well because you do. Years ago, I had a neighbor who was cold and unfriendly. For months, I'd smile, wave, try to strike up a little conversation. Nothing. But I kept showing up with kindness. Then one day, her dog passed away, and I brought her some flowers and offered to sit with her for a bit. That moment opened something in her. We became friends, not overnight, but slowly. That experience reminded me that you never know what someone's carrying inside. I told Ava, be the person who gives people the benefit of the doubt. Assume good, unless proven otherwise. The world can be hard. Why make it harder for someone else when you treat others with dignity? Even when it's inconvenient, you're choosing to build a life filled with grace. It doesn't take grand gestures. Sometimes it's just a smile, a held door, thank you, a phone call that says, I'm thinking of you. It also means being mindful of your words. Words are like seeds. They grow into something. You can't always take them back. So let your words be healing. Let them be gentle. You don't have to agree with everyone, but you can choose not to harm. And perhaps most importantly, treat yourself with the same compassion. I've seen so many people give kindness to the whole world, but speak harshly to themselves. That's not balance. That's burnout. So show yourself the same patience, the same understanding, the same forgiveness you would offer a friend. The way you treat others is the legacy you leave behind. People may not remember what you said or what you did, but they'll remember how you made them feel. Make them feel seen. Make them feel safe. Make them feel valued. That, I told Ava, is the kind of wealth that really matters. Take the right road, not the easy one. It's a sentence I've repeated to myself more times than I can count. So when Ava asked me for advice, I didn't hesitate to share it. Because in life, the easiest path is often paved with shortcuts, temporary comfort, and decisions that feel good now, but hurt later. I told her, doing what's right doesn't always feel good in the moment. In fact, it's usually the harder choice, but it's the one that lets you sleep peacefully at night. I learned this lesson in the deepest way when my husband became ill. At the time, I had a thriving career in television, a job I truly loved. I adored the rhythm of my work, the people I met, and the purpose I felt. But when he got sick, everything changed. I had to choose between the career I'd worked so hard to build, and being the person my family needed, it wasn't an easy choice. It was heartbreaking, but it was the right one. I stepped away from the spotlight so I could care for my husband and be present for my children. I didn't want them to lose both their parents, not while I had a choice. And I've never regretted that decision. Choosing the right path often means putting your ego aside. It means pausing and asking, what matters more in the long run? Sometimes it's about integrity. Standing up for what you believe in, even if it makes you unpopular. Other times, it's about sacrifice, giving something up for someone you love, or for your own peace of mind. I told Ava, you'll be tempted. You'll be offered the easier road when you're tired, or scared, or unsure. That's when you have to be the strongest, because the easy road will get you somewhere fast, but not somewhere good. Sometimes, you won't even know if you've chosen the right path until much later. That's the mystery of life. But if you make your decisions from a place of love, truth, and self-respect, you'll look back and feel proud, even if it was hard. I reminded her that being strong isn't about being stubborn. It's about being honest. Honest with yourself and with the world. It's about saying, I could cut corners, but I won't. That takes character. That builds a life worth living. And when you make the right choice, even if no one notices or thanks you, you will know. You'll carry that strength with you. It becomes part of who you are. So, I said, take the harder path when it's right. Let that be your compass. Because one day, someone you love will ask you for advice, and the way you lived your life will be the answer. Of all the things I shared with Awa that day, this one may be the hardest and the most important. Believe in yourself. It sounds simple, doesn't it? But it's one of the hardest things to truly do, especially when you're young and the world is full of noise, pressure, and expectations. I looked at her and said, if you don't believe in yourself, you'll spend your whole life waiting for permission that no one will ever give. There were times in my life when I doubted everything. My choices, my appearance, my abilities. I let the opinions of others chip away at my confidence. If someone didn't like me, I wondered what was wrong with me. If someone criticized my work, I assumed they were right. Slowly, I realized that kind of thinking steals your power. Self-belief doesn't mean arrogance. It means trusting your worth, even when others don't see it yet. It means knowing you are capable, even if you're still learning. It's looking in the mirror and saying, I may not be perfect, but I am enough. I told Ava, don't let the outside world shape your inside world. Because the truth is, people will always have opinions. Some will doubt you, not because you're unworthy, but because they're looking through the lens of their own fears. Don't take that on. And sometimes, the disbelief doesn't come from others. It comes from within. That quiet inner voice that says, you're not ready, or you're not smart enough, or you're too late. That voice, it lies. It's fear in disguise. The best way to silence it is to take action. Small steps, one at a time. You build self-belief like a muscle. Every time you show up for yourself, by trying something new, by saying no when something doesn't feel right, by celebrating your own growth, you get stronger. When I finally started pursuing my dream of being on stage later in life, it wasn't because someone told me I could. It was because I told myself I could. I looked around and thought, why not me? That question is powerful. Ask it often. And here's the thing. Believing in yourself doesn't mean you'll never fail. You will. But when you do, Self-belief helps you get back up. It reminds you that failure is not your identity. It's just part of the journey. So I looked at Ava and I said, even when the world is loud, even when your knees are shaking, stand tall in who you are. No one else has your voice. No one else has your story. That alone makes you irreplaceable. Believe in yourself. Not someday. Today. Especially today. If I could bottle one message and place it gently into the hands of every young person, it would be this: don't quit. I told Ava, no matter how hard things get, no matter how many times you fall, you must keep going. Because failure isn't the end. It's just part of the journey. Sometimes, it's even the most important part. I've had moments in my life when I felt like giving up. I've stood in the middle of chaos, heartbroken, exhausted, uncertain of what to do next. And there were failures, some small, some that felt like the sky had caved in. But every single time I kept going, something new grew in me, a kind of strength you can't learn in comfort. I told her, it's okay to cry. It's okay to sit down and rest. But don't unpack your life in a place of failure. Get back up. Think of it like a garden. You plant seeds with hope, water them with effort, and wait. Sometimes, nothing grows. Sometimes, only a few green shoots peek through. It's tempting to throw up your hands and say, why bother? But what if you tried again? With new seeds, with better timing, with more patience. Life is like that. I remember launching a project once that I poured my heart into, only to see it flop. At first, I felt embarrassed. But then I looked at what I learned, the skills I gained, the connections I made, the resilience I uncovered. That project didn't succeed on paper, but it made me stronger. And eventually, that strength helped me succeed elsewhere. Failure teaches us, it sharpens us, and most importantly, it reminds us that we are still here and still capable. Quitting, on the other hand, guarantees one thing: you'll never know what could have been. That's a heavy burden to carry. I said to Ava, you might not always feel brave, but if you get up after falling, you are brave. That courage builds over time, like calluses on your hands from hard work. Sometimes, people give up not because they lack ability, but because they expect things to come easily. But the most worthwhile things, the dreams that light up your soul, often demand more than you think you have. Give them that effort anyway. And if you need to start over, do it. There's no shame in beginning again. The shame would be in refusing to try. So plant your seeds. Water them. Keep going, even when nothing seems to bloom. Your growth may be slow, but it's still growth. And one day, something beautiful will surprise you. Toward the end of our conversation, Ava asked, but Nana, what if people judge me? And I smiled, because that question, I've asked myself 1,000 times. I told her, sweetheart, if you spend your life worrying about what others think of you, you'll never become who you're meant to be. There was a time when I lived under the weight of other people's opinions. I worried about how I looked, how I spoke, how I parented, how I aged. I was constantly editing myself, toning down, covering up, reshaping to fit someone else's idea of who I should be. And do you know what it got me? Exhaustion. Worrying what people think robs you of your joy. It keeps you small. You start making choices, not because they're right for you, but because they're safe, or popular, or expected. But the truth is, people will talk no matter what you do. So you might as well give them something honest to talk about. I told Ava, be bold enough to take up space. Be brave enough to be different. And be wise enough to know that not everyone needs to understand you. When I went through menopause, I gained weight, and I remember feeling so ashamed. I didn't want people to think I'd let myself go. But then I asked myself, what if I just let go of them? Their judgments, their standards, their impossible expectations. And that felt like freedom. Being yourself doesn't mean being perfect. It means being real. If you're loud, be loud. If you're quiet, be still. If you love things that others find strange, love them harder. If you make mistakes, own them with grace. Because the world doesn't need more polished masks. It needs people who are fully, unapologetically alive. And yes, when you live authentically, you might lose people. That's okay. The ones who matter will find you. Not the version of you you've created to be accepted, but the real, raw, radiant you. I said, you're not here to be liked. You're here to live. Don't shrink yourself for someone else's comfort. Don't dull your light so others feel less insecure. Be kind, yes, but also be you. Fully, fiercely, freely. You will evolve. You'll grow and change. But let those changes come from within. Not from fear of being judged. The right people will love you for exactly who you are. And the wrong ones, let them go. So if I could tattoo one sentence on her heart, it would be this: you are not here to impress. You are here to express. And when you live that way, you won't just feel confident. You'll feel free. As we sat together by the ocean that morning, Ava resting her head on my shoulder, I realized something. The best advice I could ever give her wasn't about success, or wealth, or even happiness. It was about becoming. Becoming the kind of person who lives with depth, with kindness, with intention. I told her, you may not always know the right answer, but if you live with heart, with curiosity, and with courage, life will meet you halfway. This conversation wasn't about being perfect. It was about being real. I wanted her to know that mistakes will happen, people will disappoint you, plans will fall through. But your spirit, that's yours to protect, nourish, and grow. So whether she's navigating college, building a career, falling in love, or facing heartbreak, I hope she remembers: stay curious, take action on your dreams, trust your instincts, be kind, do what's right, not what's easy, believe in yourself, don't give up, and please, never let someone else's opinion define your worth. And if someday I'm not here to remind her of these things, I hope my words echo in her heart like a steady drumbeat, guiding her through both the storms and the sunshine. To everyone listening, whether you're 18 or 80, life is still offering you new lessons, new chances, and new chapters. So take a deep breath, walk boldly into your day, and never forget you are enough, just as you are.